All right, welcome everyone. It is the regular City Council meeting, the Arlington City Council. I'm Rich Nagel and I'll be presiding at the meeting. This is March 20th, 2017, 6:30 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call of council members. Councilmember Wills. Councilmember Hattlestead.
Here.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Here.
Councilmember Batcher.
Here.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
And Councilmember Cowell.
Here.
All council members are present. Also with us this evening on my left is City Administrator Donabauer. On my right is City Attorney Ross Arneson. Also in the audience that I want to recognize Kurt Mink, representing the Enterprise, Interim Police Chief Jordan Voigt. I believe we have Laura Hacker and Gina Seaver here from the Sibley County Assessor's Office. There are a number of people here, I know, to discuss the or with interest in the assessment issue of the 2015 street project, and welcome to all of you. Also with us is Alan Yerke for representing the Parks Committee, and he will have a report later. So, moving on to item 3, approve the agenda and any agenda additions. Are there any additions or changes? If not, motion is in order to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Everybody second.
Yeah. Motion by Councilmember Batcher, second by Councilmember Yashewski to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. You have before you the consent agenda, and the consent agenda this evening consists of the following. Item A, approval of the March 6th regular meeting minutes. Item B, approval of the March 6th tour workshop meeting minutes. Item C, approval of the March 13th special meeting minutes. Item D, approval of the bills. And item E, approval of the ambulance and police staffing and temporary closure of Henderson Road and Freedom Drive at 4th Avenue East for the Sibley County Relay for Life 5K color run on Saturday, June 17th. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilmember Yashewski, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to approve the items on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried. Moving on to public hearings. There are no public hearings this evening. And then we get down to item 5, addressing the council. We have a presentation by County Assessor Laura Hacker and Appraiser Gina Sievert. Would you come forward, please? Welcome. And invite you to use the microphone, please.
Perfect. I got a couple handouts here. We'll just kind of, if you want to pass around. Well, good evening. Thanks for the invitation to come and speak to you tonight regarding the property tax assessment process, and just kind of a brief overview of what we did regarding our values for the 2017 assessment. I see some familiar faces, but for those who maybe don't know me, my name is Laura Hocker. I'm the county assessor. And
Gina Sievert. I'm moving into the appraiser position for the city of Arlington this year.
And during the presentation, if you have any questions, certainly feel free to interrupt or ask at any time. So in an effort to kind of keep this short, keep it moving or rolling along, I'll kind of go through the presentation a little quick. If you have any questions, like I said, let me know. Or if you have questions after the meeting, after you have time to look through it, call me anytime. So we'll kind of start with this property tax assessment process PowerPoint presentation. We go to open it up. So the appraisal process, just kind of briefly describe what we do, what our office does. So the first thing that we kind of do with properties is classify them according to use. So this also includes homestead determination. So when we say according to use, that means if it's being tilled, more than likely agricultural. If it's a single-family residential, more than likely residential. There's a lot more that goes into classifying that, but we won't get into all the details. The second thing that we kind of do is estimate the value. So how we go about doing that is, number one, we go out and view the properties. So we're required to physically view each property once every 5 years, and that is a state statute. We also can visit the properties at shorter intervals for a whole bunch of reasons, one being building permits. So we get a copy of all the building permits that are issued from the city, and say somebody gets a permit to build a new garage. We're not going to wait, say they're not scheduled to be seen in another 3 years for the quintal, we're still gonna be going out and viewing that property with a building permit. So you can kind of read all the reasons why we would go out there. Anytime a property owner requests us to come out and view a property, we certainly will. We're not gonna say, oh, we're not scheduled to see your property for 3 more years. We'll certainly oblige any request. So we're gonna go out there, we're gonna view the property, we're gonna come back, we're gonna update our information on our records. And at that point, every year we analyze sales data and apply the appropriate changes to value. And further on in the presentation, I'll kind of get into the details of how do we determine what we do with our values every year. And then we mail the valuation and classification notices out to all property owners, telling them, what value we have set on that, and then they have options to appeal if they feel that that is not correct. The next slide is kind of a sample of, it's a screenshot basically from our computer program that kind of shows you, we do take a photo of all properties so that we can kind of see when we go back to the office. And then also we do have a sketch of all the properties. So we're gonna be measuring your house, measuring your garage or commercial business, and having it sketched out. The next page, this also is a presentation for the townships as well, but the next page doesn't really relate to the city as much, but the same as the townships, we go out. If you have 3 silos, a barn, a granary, we're gonna have all that information on your property as well. Next page. Just some common definitions or terms that we work with in our office. Estimated market value is kind of the biggest one that we work with. It is the price the property would likely sell for in the open market under typical, normal, and competitive conditions. So basically, this is that value that we're sending out to property owners every year. Okay. There's a couple of things in there. Buyer, seller are typically motivated. So some people often wonder, why don't you use foreclosures in your analysis, or why don't you use bank sales? Well, typically the seller is not motivated at that point to sell, so it's got to be a willing buyer, willing seller kind of thing. And that value is set as of January 2nd of each year. So we set that value once a year. Another one is taxable market value that you might be familiar with, and that is the amount of value that's actually used in calculating your property tax. So why can that be different from the estimated market value? There are many programs within the property tax system that can make those values different. The biggest one or most prominent is the homestead exclusion, which can make your taxable market value different than your estimated. Next page. So how do we determine that value? There are 3 basic approaches to value. First is sales comparison approach, and that's based upon comparable properties that have actually sold. So that's best for property types that typically have a good supply of that data, like residential. The next one is the cost approach. That's based upon cost schedules for reproduction or replacement cost, and then you use depreciation. So that's kind of best for properties that typically don't have a good supply of that sales data. So churches, we're not going to find 2 other churches that may be sold in town to give us an idea of what that value looks like. And then the third is the income approach, and that's kind of based upon the anticipated income or the capitalization of that income. So that's kind of best used for properties that typically buy or sell based upon that, like apartments. So next slide, there are basically 3 reasons why the values could change, either up or down. The first is the appreciation or depreciation in the real estate market. So that's kind of, we're collecting that sales data on the market and adjusting properties. So you kind of hear that, typically there's a cycle to that real estate market. It just is a matter, or depends upon when that happens. Next is physical changes to the property. So again, you put on a garage, or you put on an addition to your house, or you take something off, you take a part of a deck off or something. So any physical changes to the property also affect that value. And then the equalization process, the last one is the Commissioner of Revenue, acting as the State Board of Equalization, does have the authority to increase or decrease property values, Basically, if as the county assessor, we're not changing our values as directed, within their guidelines that they expect, they do have the authority to come in and do it themselves. Next page. Change in estimated market values. So how do we determine those changes every year? What the Department of Revenue does is compares our estimated market value, so the value that we set on that property, to the sale price of those good arm's length sales. Okay, so they're going to take our value divided by the sale price. And the median ratio of sales in your jurisdiction, so what they're going to do is take all of the sales within Arlington City for that specific classification. So, for example, residential. They're going to take all those sales, and they're going to put them in a ratio of sales, and that has to be between 90 and 105%. Okay, so our value that we place on that property has to be at least 90% of what it sells for, and not above 105. Okay, the goal is 100%, so Department of Revenue, tells us to shoot for 100% of that sale. So here's just an example. If you would have 7 sales, Arlington typically has more, but if you have 7, you're going to pick that median. So not the average. They don't take them and divide by 7. They're going to take that median, because what that does is if you have a couple sales that, wow, something was just really off with that property, or you have some, that are way out of range, it's not going to affect it as much if you're taking the average, or taking the median versus the average. Okay. So in this case, this example, we were at our value was 86% of sale price. We would have to be increasing by those by at least 4% to reach that 90 at a minimum. So we set those values, and what do you do if you disagree with that value or classification? As the property owner, you say, no, I just don't think that is accurate or correct. Some informal options that you have is you can contact the county assessor with questions or concerns at any time. So it doesn't have to be at a certain time throughout the year. Now, there are restrictions on when we're allowed to kind of change those values if we feel it's necessary, but you can contact us at any time. Or you could appeal at the open book meeting, which is, in the case of Arlington cities, you have chosen to do the open book. The more formal options would be the boards of appeal and equalization. So they could appeal there, which, like I said, your jurisdiction has chosen not to do that, so they would do the more informal. And if for some reason, we don't come to an agreement between at that open book, we don't agree on where that value should be, they certainly have the right to go to County Board of Appeal. So it's not just you come in, talk to the county assessor, and that's it. We don't feel it should be changed up or down. You still have other options to go on. And then the second more formal option is Minnesota Tax Court. So anybody has the right or option to file in Minnesota Tax Court. The last couple of pages are just kind of some frequently asked questions that we get asked as assessors commonly. First one is, can I refuse entry to the assessor? So the answer to that is yes. A property owner can refuse entry to the assessor. They kind of have to be in verbal or written in a letter to the county assessor. And then if the assessor is denied access to view a property, basically what we're going to do is we're going to estimate that market value by making assumptions believed to be true of that property. So if we go to a property and we are not allowed to get in, and we believe that there's basement finish, or that the addition was added in this year, we're going to make those assumptions that are reasonable. Okay, and however, if a property owner refuses entry to the assessor, they do not have the right to appeal their value. Okay, so that's kind of the downside to not letting the assessor in, is then you don't have the right to appeal. Okay. Next one, is it legal for the assessor to increase or decrease my value so much in 1 year? And the answer to that is yes. The assessor must value property at market value each year. So property values change continuously with the market conditions, and there's no limit to that increase or decrease in a given year. Okay. And kind of the last frequently asked question, does an increase in market value mean that my taxes will increase? That's really a common one. People always relate to my value is going up, my taxes are going to go up, but that is not the case necessarily. So if all properties see a similar increase in value, your property class hasn't changed. You're not going from commercial to residential or something similar. The local government agency budgets do not increase. So like as the City Council of Arlington, your budgets play a role in that. There would be little impact on your property tax bill. So taxing authorities actually determine how much money property taxes have to raise to provide the services that you need. Okay, so some people say, well, property values went up 20%, my taxes are gonna go up 20%. Well, if everybody's taxes went up 20%, then you as the city council are going to be getting 20% more than what you levied for. That is not accurate, right? So whatever you levy, yeah, right? Whatever you levy your budget for is what you're going to collect. It's just a matter, kind of what we do is we set value and classification, determine who pays what portion of that pie. Okay, so that's kind of what we do. And in a similar manner, does a decrease in my market value mean that my taxes will decrease? No, it's the same rationale as the other way going up. So, you know, you kind of shook your head, yes, that'd be great if you got more property taxes. Well, it goes the other way around too. If we decrease property values, you don't want any less money to operate your city that you need. So, okay, so that's kind of the presentation. The next couple sheets, sort of, is 2017 assessment value changes. Is that the next one? You can see, okay. So this is just kind of a recap, countywide on what we did with our assessment values this year. So for cities for Arlington, for residential classifications, we went up approximately 15% to that estimated market value. And again, property owners will begin receiving these notices within a week or two. I would say we're about ready to mail them out. So residential went up 15%. The next section is townships, which really doesn't pertain to you. And then commercial in Arlington City went up 20%. So we did see some substantial changes this year to property values in residential and commercial. Current study, okay.
Sales study, I'm sorry.
Oh, the sales study, okay. So the next handout, and I'm not gonna go over every single sale that we had for the city of Arlington. Like I said, you're certainly welcome to look over the report. If after the meeting or next week or next month you have a question, let me know. But what we do is we keep track of all the sales, the same as Department of Revenue does, and we calculate that ratio. So I'm just providing it to you so you can kind of see how many sales you had. To kind of make it short, the median ratio that we had for Arlington City this year, after the Department of Revenue applies their time adjustments, was 84.56%. You might not see those total ratios on there, but they're kind of calculated to the side a little bit more. But 84.56 was Arlington's residential ratio this year. So that, hence the 15% increase that we did to get us up close to that 100%. And after applying that 15% increase to these sales, as well as all the residential properties in Arlington City, our ratio after that was 97.2. So again, we didn't quite hit 100, but we're allowed to between 90 and 105. So I think the department will be say that's a sufficient increase. Okay. So after that increase, we're sitting at about 97% of these sales that occurred. Okay. Any questions on that? It's a lot of information in a little bit of time, but like I said. Okay. The next handout that we have, or the next one that we have, is the sales ratio going forward. So we look at analyze sales for a 12-month period from October through September of the following year. We provide this next one just to kind of show you that, you know, it is nice to see after that 15% increase, what are the sales doing in the last couple months? You know, is that 15% making sense to where we're at? So you can see Arlington City's had a couple sales within the last couple months in residential. And after we applied that 15% increase, we're sitting right around 101% with the new sales that came through. So pretty much within range. Okay. And the last handout that I'm going to talk about is the commercial sales in town. So again, they follow the same rules as residential. Every classification does. We have to be between 90 and 105%. We did have 3 good commercial sales this year. Now the handout has several years on it for Arlington City. Again, commercial doesn't get quite as many sales as residential. So I like to kind of provide that history there. I believe it's, I'm not for sure when the last one is, 2007 or so. But for last year's ratio study period for commercial, we had 3 good sales for commercial. And the median ratio was 69.62%. Okay, so our values were roughly 70% of what they were selling for on commercial properties. Hence, that's why we went up 20% on commercial this year. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? Sorry, that was kind of quick and fast, but. kind of gives you a general idea of how do we arrive at these increases or decreases in market values every year. And sorry, the green ones that are highlighted are the current ones from this last year. So those are the most current commercial sales.
Okay.
Any questions?
Comments, council? A lot of good information. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question if I could.
Sure.
quick.
Yes, go ahead.
When we had the downturn in the economy and the houses kind of sales flattened out, what did you do with the appraisals? Did values go down?
Yes, I do have, I could look at the last couple of years and what we did, but there was a point a couple of years ago that we were decreasing property values, yes. So, as much as they go up, they also can go down as well. But yes, we did decrease values for a couple of years within that.
Are they coming back up again?
Yes, so, well, as far as residential, so the sales that are showing us, yes, if you kind of look at this, it's a little bit of overview, but you can see all the cities pretty much went up with an increase this year. So the cities did, I can say that for residential. Now, when you're talking different classifications or different properties, it's a little bit different. Agricultural, we have seen kind of a decrease in that sale price. So tillable values, we did decrease 10% this year across the county. So kind of depends on what segment of the market you're looking at.
Very good, thank
Okay,
you.
yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We aren't gonna have a quiz on this after a while, are we?
All right, at this time, we get to the point where we are going to invite citizens to address the council. Just a few ground rules here. 5 minutes for each of you, and if you know that there's a number of you going to be speaking on virtually the same topic, I would appreciate it if you would designate a spokesman for the group. So with that in mind, I know this is your presentation to the council. It's not meant to be an exchange from the council back to you. We're listening to you, and I assure you that we're taking your input seriously. So at this time, if someone wants to speak, would you please come forward and use the microphone? Name and address, please, for the record.
Curtis Reeds, 309 4th Avenue Northwest. I'm not speaking for anybody specifically. This isn't an organized group, but I understand the mayor's concerns. I'm going to probably bore you guys with some quick things that we've only covered in workshops that a lot of people haven't heard either on TV or behind me. Week of January 17th, I spoke with the city administrator in private in office about the project coming in under bid and about the assessments that were paid by us based on the bid, and the actual project came in less. And all that I asked her was do the right thing. Give the people their money back. Don't make a big spectacle out of it. Send them a notice in the mail and say, hey, by the way, we had a good project and this happened. February 6th, my wife and I come before the council, and I presented it again. February 21st, workshop, Mike Sharpie and John Burdick and myself came before the council and listened, and we had a few comments. March 6th, workshop, Mike, John, and I came before the council again, had a few comments, but we mainly listened. Now we're at the March 20th meeting. I'm sorry if I'm boring you because you have already made a decision that's positive to what I'm requesting, but I haven't got that inkling or reception in face-to-face and voice actions with any of you. So I have to continue to communicate what I think you need to do that maybe you're considering not doing. One of the things when I spoke with the administrator, she said that it would more than likely take a lot of staff time, so she needed council approval. At the meeting, workshop meeting on March 6th, I think the engineer said it took him an hour to recalculate all the numbers. I'm sure there was a lot of time spent on behalf of the city administrator, because I know there's other consultants she contacted. I can only speak an opinion that I think a lot of that time and resources could have been put somewhere else, and this issue could have been put to bed 8 weeks ago. Again, I'm asking just to do the right thing, and this isn't about me. Out of the 32 refunds that I think should be done, I'm the second from the bottom. So there's 30 people above me, and then 2 of the other ones that are the City of Arlington property. So this isn't about me. It's doing the right thing. The only other thing I can say about what I looked in through some of the notes and some of the resources and behind the scenes work that staff has done, I'm sure this wasn't the intention, but it seems like a lot of the research that was put in had Kurt Rietz's name on it. Kurt Rietz was on the council in 2015, and Kurt Rietz was here talking about change orders, and Kurt Rietz was doing this. What Kurt Rietz did when he was on the council for 16 years in a policy-making role has nothing to do with me sitting here, and has nothing to do with this refund that is due to the employees. So I think we need to take Kurt Rietz's name off of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reitz. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council at this time?
I'm pretty much on the same page as Kurt is in this group, so,
Okay.
Street assessments and also,
John, we can't hear you, so if you're saying something new, we can't hear what you're saying.
okay.
If it's just repeating what Kurt did, or you agree with him,
No, I'm not repeating what Kurt.
okay. But you agree,
Subject is about the same,
okay,
what he spoke about,
okay,
and it's about the street assessments and,
all right,
usage of the streets and so forth.
okay,
So,
yep. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else wish to speak to the council at this time on any subject? Anyone? All right. Then we will close that portion of the meeting and we'll move on to announcements.
This Thursday, the Legislative Conference for Cities will be held in St. Paul. We have representatives from Winthrop and Arlington
Yep.
that will be present. We also have various 2017 League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust Safety and Loss Control workshops that are hosted at various locations throughout March and April. We do have maintenance worker Kirby Weckworth and myself attending those. Please join our mayor for Coffee with the Mayor on April 20th at 1:30 p.m. at the Cenex gas station. And then the second annual Go Local Live and Work in Sibley County Business Expo will be held right here at the Arlington Community Center on April 20th, 4 to 8 p.m. This is a great opportunity for Sibley County and Arlington to attend. Last year it was held at GFW. The local Board of Appeal and Equalization open book meeting that Laura Hawker had spoke of will be held on Thursday, April 20th, 3 to 8 p.m. at the Sibley County Assessor's Office in Gaylord. And then the Arlington Chamber will be bringing forward with their Spring into Arlington first ever event on April 27th, 5 to 8 p.m. on Main Street as well as in the EMS building. It's a great opportunity for our residents and local businesses to take advantage of local shopping. And then the City of Arlington Cleanup Day will be held May 24th, 9 to 4 p.m. in partnership with the Tri-County Waste at Sibley County Fairgrounds. And in the council's packet was a brochure on that event. If that is an approval to the council, I was going to submit that to the Arlington Enterprise to be published and put the information in our newsletter and Facebook and website and all that good stuff.
Is there any mention in Tri-County's advertising of the fact that it's being held in conjunction with the City of Arlington?
No, it is not in
Is that,
the information I've seen.
okay. All right, moving on to item 7, communications.
In the council packets, there is a copy of the February water and wastewater report, the February police reports, the February building permit report, and the February financial reports. Your first Sibley County Community Development newsletter is also in your packet. That was submitted by Amy Newsome, Community Development Consultant for Sibley County. It's just a great way to highlight economic development efforts throughout Sibley County. You also have a copy of the pay equity compliance notification. That is the report, the required report that was submitted in January on behalf of the city, as well as the annual gambling report from the German Days Incorporated, as well as the organizations that they donated to throughout 2016.
Okay, any questions on the communications? Go ahead.
I'll just, looking at the gambling report from German Days, I just, see, we didn't have this where the donations were made, which is good to see that,
That was the last, you sent that out this afternoon, I believe.
yeah. The ambulance, the county fair, Arlington Night Out, Jared Allen Home for Wounded Warriors, and of course, sales tax. And VFW Walking Path. Looks like I had a total of over $3,000 that were donated to the, oh, you have it there.
To the local area.
Mm-hmm.
So your tab gambling is being well spent.
They are doing a good job of supporting the local community with their profits, yes. Any other items? If not, we'll move on to reports of officers, boards, and committees, and Mr. Al Erke is here to report from the Parks Committee. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here on behalf of the Parks Committee to give the annual update. Thought I'd start with just the members of our committee. Gary Hultgren, Bob Thomas, Karen Pickelman, Jerry Ebersviller, Walter Allison is a new member this year, just started at our last meeting, and myself. Councilmember Yashevsky is the city council person on the committee, and Tony Voigt was our city worker on the committee, so that'll be changing, I guess. But those are the members on our committee. Thought I'd do a little update on what we accomplished last year, kind of let you know where we're headed this year. First thing last year, I think we got the ball field at Sportsman's Park completed. It was down to getting the backstop and some of the fencing right in that area finished up. So that is done. We did a tour of the parks and kind of took inventory of the trees that are in the park, how old they are, what's going to need replacing. And then in the fall, we started replacing trees. We had a Sunday afternoon tree planting. I don't remember the exact number. Was it right around 50 trees that we planted, I think?
Over 50.
Over 50, yeah. So it was a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon. So it was a nice day to do it, and I think it worked out. Now, we'll see in a few more weeks, hopefully. They all survived, and they'll be in good shape. So we toured the parks. We kind of saw where do we need more trees, and quite a wide variety of trees. And I was trying to think back. I know there were some oaks,
Kentucky coffee.
Kentucky coffee, yeah. There were some that I had never heard of before, but so we have more variety than just all one type of tree. So, and then we were trying to get funding for the senior building, which came through. So that's kind of what we worked on last year. This year, more tree planting is on the agenda. Continuing the senior building project, and we're working on figuring out the gazebo at Memorial Park and just where to have a new one built or replaced, or however that ends up. That's what I could think of. I don't know, Ben, can you think of anything that I might have forgotten?
The repair of playground equipment it's more than just wearing out and need little fixes. I went to see the one at Frenzel, and there's a hole a kid could fall through,
Really? Wow.
and it is blocked off, so they can't get up there. And then, how did that happen? I don't know. I don't know how a hole like that would, unless you got big kids jumping on it, could be, but it's, I think I'd almost fit through it.
And I haven't been out there to look at it. I need to get out there. Just haven't had time to see it. But yeah, so that's something I could add to this year's, I guess.
What type of life does the playground equipment do? I mean, I would imagine the sun does a number on it, and it weakens it or makes it brittle or something, but any idea how long ago, for instance, that, not that that was a weather related, it probably was vandalism related.
That play structure was put in when Lowell Enerson was the city administrator, so.
I remember Lowell Enerson, but I don't remember when he was
Yeah.
here.
I think it was probably about 15, 16 years ago, because I was on
Okay.
park board then too.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And a lot of it they don't make parts for, that's what we found with this particular
Right.
one, so you have to buy a
Yeah.
whole new,
It could have just been one section about this big.
because it is in sections, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could have been replaced, but there isn't a replacement piece.
Okay.
Is there any way that could be patched?
I don't know.
It's too big.
It's a hole like this.
Isn't it plastic?
It's
Yeah.
a plastic type of material, yeah. I don't know how you would adhere anything on it and make it stay there.
and make it strong enough to support someone, so, yeah, I don't know.
You know, some junior high kids can get good size.
That was the first play structure that we put in. And I think since then, after that, we replaced the Four Seasons play structure. Then we put a smaller unit at Fairview and then out at Sportsman's Park, so we've updated all of the parks in terms of their play structures, I guess.
I know at the last meeting, there was some discussion about how do we get people to use the Sportsman's Park more. It's such a beautiful field out there, and beautiful park. I think we just need to really concentrate on letting people know that it's, you know, it's there. And hopefully, I was thinking the school probably would have a need for it now that their playgrounds are gone. I don't know if, as far as softball games, various levels of softball, if they would be playing out there, but I don't know. Michelle, you're involved in summer with the little, you know, the summer rec, or with your kids. Is there any instances where they've used the Sportsman's Park field yet, or?
I'm not sure about last year.
Okay.
Last year was the first year that it was
Yeah.
It was
able to be
Able,
used or
yeah.
whatever, so I'm
Yep.
not sure how much use. The Irish A's anyhow got use out of that. So, or softball teams, I think.
Right.
They book the two fields right in town typically.
Yeah.
But with T-ball, there's summer rec that's in the evenings now or whatever, two on top of the baseball club and softball clubs. So I mean, there definitely is a need for another field now that the two that were on the school property are
They're
gone.
gone. That's right. And there is, you know, facilities for concessions, so that could be worked into, you know, some of these programs also, so.
You reminded me of one other thing. I think Community Ed is putting on a pitch hit and run competition, and I think they're planning to use that field, so that's one way to get more people out to the
Right.
park, and I think once they see it,
Yeah.
it's in nice shape.
Yeah.
And I know with the senior building being closed right now for renovation, there's been a lot of interest of going out to Sportsman's Park to use it out there too, so it's kind of
Good.
an opportunity
Good.
that we didn't foresee.
Well, I know we had talked, remember talking last year about bleachers out at Sportsman Park. Is there any talk about any kind of benching or
Yes. And
Do you have any
We-
money for it?
no,
Bleachers are
So-
expensive.
I think you're the person to talk to. But it's on our radar, we have it listed, it's just a matter of what year is there. Money to get it done, I guess. We know that they need to be replaced and,
I think they were put on hold in order to replace the backstop,
That's
because the
right.
Yeah.
backstop wasn't going to be replaced. And then I believe our maintenance department has went out there and spruced them up a little bit so
Right.
that they can withhold a few years longer. But I think, was it 2018 maybe?
I wanna say,
potentially?
yeah, 2018 is, so a year from now, hopefully.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. Key? Okay,
If not, thank you.
Al.
thank you. Thank you. Keep up the good work. All right, there are no ordinances this evening. Well, there is ordinance actually, first reading of ordinance 313.
All right, so City Attorney Arneson had submitted chapters 5 and 6. 5 is crime, 6 is nuisance for the council's review.
And again, this is considered a first or a continued reading, so as you read this for your bedtime stories, any questions or concerns or additions. The criminal section, although, you know, just about anything that's fun is criminal, our criminal chapter is rather short because we mostly operate under state criminal statutes. And we just have a few things that are available to us to regulate locally, and those are in there. I had commented in an earlier email that, and this was generated by a council query on whether or not the city could prohibit firearms on city property or in city council chamber. And the answer is no. We can prohibit employees, as can any business, from carrying firearms while at work. But if someone has a state authorized concealed carry permit, that's controlled by state law. And we can't override state law. But we are allowed to regulate discharge of firearms in city limits. So we can say, you can bring your, you know, permitted handgun to city council chambers, but you can't shoot it. Okay, so, anyway, that, making light of this obviously, but, so you do find in our weapons control section, we do prohibit discharge of firearms in city limits except by permit of the chief of police. And then there are lots of other weapons that we can prohibit, period. You know, like switchblade knives and things like that. Moving to the chapter 6 nuisances, this consolidates a lot of scattered nuisance ordinances we've had over the years and organizes it much better. The one comment I made in my cover email is you'll find that one of the existing ordinance nuisance sections has to do with the parking of vehicles in backyards. And basically, motor vehicles are prohibited from being parked in yards, front or back, unless they are recreational, boat trailers, things like that. And I know there have been council discussions actually forever, but I recall there was a recent discussion in this council about, you know, what do we want to prohibit and what we don't, as far as storage of those seasonal recreational vehicles. So I just commented in the cover email, maybe that's something that would be appropriate to discuss further at this point, since we're including that in the codification of the ordinance. So, that's my comments on that.
And just a summary for our audience who's here, we have over 300 ordinances. Some have been superseded and replaced, and it made it very cumbersome for our police and staff to review any ordinances. So our city attorney's been working for years to consolidate this into a readable chapter book.
It is, it's very easy to read, it's very easy to find. what you're looking for, and, or just like sit down and read it. I mean, it is very easy.
Well, these
To
two
find
chapters,
what you need.
and I thought it'd be of interest to the council, so each time I submit a chapter, you have seen, I also include a list of ordinances that are now superseded or consolidated into this new code chapter. And these two, for example, chapters 5 and 6 replaced 22 ordinances,
Wow.
so.
I was quite amazed on the firearms regulation that a slingshot is considered a weapon and cannot be discharged in the city limits, along with a BB gun or pellet gun or a bow and arrow. And I ran into this in Waconia, that bow and arrows could not be discharged in the city limits unless they were within 50 feet of a DNR waterway. But they had to be 100 feet from a house. And my backyard at the time was right by a creek, and there were kids out there at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning shooting carp with bow and arrows.
Sure. Well, as with any other detail of any ordinance, it's one thing to have it on the books, it's another to enforce it. And it's kind of a case, slingshots, kid's toy. So, is Jordan gonna conduct a dragnet and arrest all those, 6-year-olds with their slingshots? Probably not. However, having it on the books allows us to enforce the law if there is a dangerous situation. And going back in history, before we had firearms, armies conducted wars with bows and arrows and slingshots. And they killed each other with those. So, yes, it can be a dangerous weapon.
Just ask Goliath.
Yeah, that's right, the Goliath clause, yes.
Okay, any questions, comments on the first reading of ordinance 313? Hearing none, we will accept that as the first reading then on ordinance 313 and move on to resolutions.
And then just to be official, the first reading of ordinance number 313 is an ordinance enacting a code of ordinances for the city of Arlington, Minnesota, amending, restating, revising, updating, codifying, and compiling certain ordinances of the city dealing with the subjects embraced in the code of ordinances and providing penalties for the violation of the code of ordinances. Chapters 5 and 6.
That is a long title. Long but necessary. All right, item 9, resolutions.
Let's see. Last Friday, city engineer Jason Femright from Bolton and Mink conducted a bid opening for the 2017 street and utility improvement project. The engineer's estimate for that project is 1.581, and there were 6 bidders for that project. The apparent low bidder was at 1.439. So the council will be acting on that bid at their second meeting in April, which is April 17th. And tonight, the city engineer is just simply asking for the council to order advertisement of the assessment hearing, which is to be held on April 17th, and then notices will be mailed to affected property owners, as well as a notice be published in the Arlington Enterprise.
That bid was about $150,000 less than the engineer's estimate.
Yeah.
And he was real happy because he said we saw the streets committee was there as well, but those 6 bids were on either side of the estimate. So he said it was a real good process. That, just to put it into perspective, for the 2015 improvement project, we had 2 bidders.
Well,
So,
And now we had 6 or 7. Okay, you have a resolution before you to call for a hearing and assessments for the 2017 street and utility improvement project. Is there someone that wishes to introduce that?
I'll move to call a resolution 24-2017, call for a hearing on assessments for the 2017 street and utility improvements.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Highland introduced the resolution, second by Councilmember Hattlestead, and the resolution is 24-2017, a resolution calling for a hearing on assessments for the 2017 street and utility improvements. Is there any questions? If not, we'll vote by roll call vote. Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
All in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. All right, no unfinished business. We will move on to item number 10, authorize or deny the purchase of a 2017 fire brush rig. Chief Zaski, do you want to make your presentation?
Well, good evening.
Good evening to you.
You'll probably never hear me say this very often, but I'd like to rescind what I said earlier this year. Instead of purchasing a 2017 pickup, I'd like a motion to purchase a 2018 pickup, not to exceed $45,000. With some insight from Councilman Highland, I did some checking. We can actually save money by buying a 2018 pickup, a 1-ton, because we can order the color factory. It's a slight tingent off from what we have, but when we looked at all 7 of our trucks, none of them are the same color. So, and the reason I say 45,000, it could come in less. We just don't quite know what everything is going to come in at, but we can shave $5,000 off, and we'll push the truck back 1 month, basically.
Now, is the equipment transfer with the equipment
We'll
that's on the
be,
old one?
whatever we can, we will be transferring. And that truck is rolling with the, down the road with the chevron on the back, the lights, the sirens, complete truck, not to exceed 45,000. We did have an officers meeting last week Thursday with Councilman Highland and Councilman Cole. They looked over our specs and stuff. Comments, questions?
Yeah, everything looked good. I mean, it was nothing out of the ordinary or exuberant. I mean, they didn't go crazy. It looks like a good truck.
Yeah, I think it's a good move to go with the 2018, especially so, you know, if they can get the color without having to spend $5,000 to $7,000.
$6,500 to paint a truck.
So we'll save about $6,000 right there.
So is that a stock color then? I mean, is that?
Yeah,
that's
it's actually, it's a GM factory.
Wow, there it is.
It's a, what did you
It's
call it?
a fleet-only color, so
Oh.
they build them only for, fleet
Purposes
for
like
fleet
this.
companies.
But
yes.
if you look at it, it is so close to our
Yeah.
color.
Looks very close.
Yeah,
Really?
and it's hard to justify spending $6,500 to paint a truck.
No, when you can get it like that, gee. Great. Okay.
And just for background, the council had earmarked $50,000 in the capital improvement project fund for the purchase of this brush fund, or brush rig, sorry.
Has there been some, there's been some donations also, has it, towards that?
Yes,
Okay. I can't remember what the total is, but I know.
and we're still working on some more.
Sure. Okay.
I'm just curious, has, the state has a program that you can purchase vehicles on, has that been checked out?
This is what this price is based off of.
Oh,
The
okay.
truck actually comes in at 42,000, and then you subtract roughly about $10,000 off of that on that,
Great.
and that would be a 1-ton Chevy pickup.
And as I understand it, we're gonna be purchasing it locally from a local Chevrolet dealer.
Correct.
That's good.
I think even in Arlington, right?
Yes.
Let's keep it pretty local. That's good.
Oh, good.
Do we need a motion or anything?
We do need a motion.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we authorize Chief Zaski to move forward with the purchase of a 2018 brush rig not to exceed $45,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Does
Motion by Councilman Highland, second by Councilmember Cowell, to purchase the 2018 fire brush rig at cost not to exceed $45,000. Is there any more discussion?
Does there have to be something to take the old, to erase the old motion?
What old motion?
There was no motion
Or-
back in, was it
Or,
January, early February? I presented that we were gonna be buying a 2017 one-ton brush rig. That's why I said I'd like to rescind what I had said.
okay.
Okay, but actually,
2018.
there wasn't any.
There was
official
no
action.
motion.
Taken.
Okay.
I think it was just information only
Yeah.
at that time.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Go buy a new truck.
Thank you.
Item number 11, authorize or deny slide replacement at Frenzel Park.
So as hinted at earlier in Chair Al Erke's discussion, the current slide at Frenzel Park does have a large hole at the top of one of the sections. There was a crack in it, but this large hole, according to our maintenance worker, it looks as if it was the work of vandalism. So prior to maintenance supervisor Tony Voigt's last day, he contacted Midwest Playscapes just to discuss the city's options and found out that because of the age, we are no longer able to replace the individual slide sections, we'd have to replace the entire slide. So he received a quote from Midwest for $4,815. Staff did contact the Parks Committee. This just came about this last week and a half, so an email was sent out to the Parks Committee just to ask for their input, and of those that replied, stated that we should replace that slide for liability as well as just the enjoyment of our youth and such. So this is not a budgeted item because this was,
It does happen to be the tallest slide too, and there's a bridge that goes across to it, and it's the one that, the bigger kids would want to play on, given the choice of the different options. And with the summer coming on, I thought there's another reason.
Okay.
Do we, knowing that it was vandalism, do we have insurance that would cover part of this cost or all of this cost?
it's a $5,000.
Deductible.
So
Hey,
no.
we just saved 5,000 on a fire truck, what can I say?
And there is monies in the capital improvement budget starting in 2018. The council or the Parks Committee is setting aside monies so that they can start replacing sections. And this obviously was unforeseen and therefore would be considered an emergency purchase out of our operating budget.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize slide replacement at Frenzel Park, 4815 to Midwest Playscapes.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Yashewski to replace the slide at Frenzel Park in the amount of $4,815 Midwest Playscapes. Any further questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to item 12, authorize or deny increase in mower hourly rate and repost the seasonal job vacancy.
So the city is in need of 2 seasonal mowers, and for the last few years, we've had a difficulty getting a number of applications. This year, well, the closing date was Friday, and we received 1 application. Comments have been made over the years from our department head indicating that we should consider increasing that wage, and now that we only have 1 mower. Last year, one of our mowers went out on medical leave early, and that really placed a lot of strain on our staff, having to go out there and be on a mower and assist with weed whipping. So I'm just bringing it before the council for consideration. Currently, we post the salary at minimum wage, and in 2016, that increased to $9.50 an hour. And I did poll our Sidley County neighbors to find out what they're paying. I've heard anywhere from contracting out the mowing services to it being incorporated as part of the duties of their full-time workers, or paying minimum wage to a college student. Tony Voigt on his, before resigning, had recommended perhaps an hourly increase of $10 to $11 an hour, and maintenance worker Kirby Weckworth agreed with that as well. I'm looking for discussion, direction.
Well, if we have to have one of our maintenance supervisors or city employees at $18 to $23 an hour riding a lawnmower, when we could hire somebody else at $10 or $11 an hour, it only makes sense to do that.
Do we have any idea how much it would cost to contract with somebody?
We'd have to put it out for bid.
We couldn't get like a ballpark?
I
Like
think
a-
one letter was like $20 an hour.
There was one gentleman that reached out and said he'd be willing to do it for $20 an hour, but obviously the city would have to put it out for bid.
How many hours, do you know offhand, how many hours they end up mowing per week?
Yep,
or-
they said it takes nearly the full 32 hours each to mow and weed whip.
So
A week.
64
64 hours a
man-hours
week.
a week.
At
A week.
$8 an hour, $9 an hour more.
But
$800 a week extra.
The $10 an hour is, if we do the 10, that's 2 employees, right? So it would be $20 an hour,
Yeah.
technically,
So it'd be about the same, right?
right?
Except we wouldn't be using our equipment anymore.
Yeah,
We
but
wouldn't have to buy mowers.
$20
And our
an
fuel.
hour.
And on rain days, those mowers, we put them to good use as well. I mean, they're out in the streets cleaning catch basins, they're cleaning up the shop, they're picking up brush, weeds, painting.
They still need them.
Yeah, it's just a,
And we have an age limit, right? I'm sorry.
We
No.
do
go ahead.
18 years of age.
See, I think it gets hard once you get the older. I mean, if it was a 16-year-old job, it'd be perfect. But for an
Yeah.
18-year-old, they're looking to try to make some money to pay for college.
Then if a city council guy could mow, heck, I'd mow. But we can't do that. I
You
could
can
give
do it
them
for
a
nothing.
problem.
I'm experienced,
Do it for free,
Can't
Tom.
do it.
I know it.
I don't do anything for free. I'm being honest.
Maybe Ross would like to get out and ride a lawnmower for a couple hours a day. You need some fresh
You wanna
air.
pull a shift with me, Russ?
Whatever.
You wanna pull a shift? You'd work 6, I work 2. Well, we can negotiate there, 7 to 1.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we raise the wage for the part-time lawnmower operators to $11 an hour.
Is there a second?
Before I second, I have only one question. Do you think $11 an hour is gonna attract somebody? I'm not looking to spend more, but
I don't know until we try.
I would second it.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Highland, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to increase the more hourly rate to $11 per hour and then to repost the seasonal job vacancy. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
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 Passes on to 3-2. Okay, item number 13, authorize or deny Seneca property purchase.
The city council entered into a workshop setting tonight to consider whether to move forward with purchasing the Seneca property located north of the industrial park. Seneca, a representative from Seneca contacted staff this week to inform us that they have received an offer on their property, and part of the purchase agreement that the city has with Seneca, the city has a 10-day 10 business day notice in order to decide whether to move forward on that purchase or not. So the workshop was just simply a discussion only, and so this item is on here just for formal action to be considered.
Okay, open for discussion. Or a motion, if you want motion to proceed a discussion like it should.
Do you need a motion for this?
If you want a motion, then we can discuss it after the motion is made and seconded. That's the way they really should go.
I'd make a motion that we discuss the Seneca property.
Oh, no, we don't need a
Oh,
motion.
what? Oh!
Not to discuss it. but to take
discuss the
action,
purchase
to
of-
approve or deny. Yeah, that's the big, I thought, wow, Jim, you're really,
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the Seneca property.
I can't believe I said that.
okay. Is there a second? Is there a second? One more time. Is there a second to that motion? Motion fails for lack of second. Would entertain another motion if someone wants to throw one in. We will have discussion after the motion has been made and seconded, no matter what it is.
I'll make a motion to deny the Seneca property purchase.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Yashewski to deny the purchase of the property of the industrial park access property from Seneca. And open for, I did mention Yashewski second, didn't I? If I didn't, I am now. Open for discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No,
Motion passes on a 4-1, and we will not follow through with the Seneca purchase. Okay, moving on to item 14, future of Arlington Police Department. I think the Seneca decision was hard.
The Gaylord City Council tabled the interim staffing agreement that this council discussed at its last meeting. They had a few concerns that will be shared with the city council, or the police committee tomorrow night at 5:30 right here in the council chambers. So, given the urgency and the status of our police department, staff reached out to the Sibley County Chief Deputy Pat Nienaber to ask if the county could provide immediate assistance. And he and Sheriff Honap had come back and said, or had offered that the city could either contract with the county and receive 10 to 15 hours maximum of coverage a week at $45 an hour, or they encouraged that we would hire their deputies as part-time officers. I did question concerns about having to conduct the psych and the background and the physical, which could take quite a bit of time. They gave me a phone number for the director at Post, and I was able to talk or speak with the director, who gave us permission to move along, given our dire straits and the fact that we'd be using trusted deputies or trusted officers from our neighbors. We would be able to bypass that background investigation. So Chief Deputy Nienaber did go and poll his deputies this last weekend to determine whether they'd be interested in even being a part-time officer for the city of Arlington. He did receive one as a definite yes and two maybes. So before you tonight is two action items. One is to authorize or deny hiring part-time police officers for the interim period. And two, consider increasing the hourly rate for the part-time police officers, because as of 2015, our rate for part-time police officers was $14.75.
Okay, open for discussion.
Did he give us this, I think you had a number in there, a dollar amount that they would want? Was it $20 an hour?
It was $20 an hour. I did, as you know, you saw a salary survey from our neighbors in Sibley County, and Winthrop and Gaylord, I saw their city administrators responded they were paying $18 an hour, and he had said it would have to be at least 20.
This is for the county deputies.
and if we went with the county, they would give us 10 to 15 hours a week coverage for $45 an hour.
And that would be patrol time, basically.
utilizing our vehicles. But he said 15 would really be pushing it. So the hope would be if we were to hire part-time officers, then perhaps we could receive more coverage than that 10 to 15.
So the part-time obviously would be using our squad cars and facility.
And then I know with the Gaylord agreement, they were or the insurance and everything was on Gaylord?
Yes.
Would that be the same?
Yes, if the.
I mean, on
county
the county?
Yeah, if they were
That's-
utilizing their vehicles and such, I would imagine it would be their insurance. They would be
Okay.
providing the similar service to what they're doing now, it's just actual patrol, like scheduled patrol here.
Okay.
Whereas now they only answer on an emergency basis. This could be an opportunity for our other communities to utilizing their full-time officers according to post.
We could use other communities. Well, if we're gonna go with part-time, we'd advertise for additional part-time officers.
So we go with the sheriff's department or Glencoe, anybody?
Well,
Or are we looking at just doing just the sheriff's department?
I guess when I posed the question to post, it
Okay.
was using our trusted neighbors because in order to shortcut, not having to go through all that, we'd have the officer fill out an application. We'd ask Sibley County, is this a trusted, or any of our neighboring communities, is this a trusted officer? And then we'd fill out a piece of paper for post and
That's specific for Sibley County only.
that's how I posed the question. It may
Or
be
neighboring
open.
communities, I mean, so that, if you posed it that way, I would say Gaylord, you know, Sibley County, maybe Glencoe, Winthrop.
I don't know, we need to do something.
No doubt.
Oh.
And I've included the salary scale in your packet, so that you know what
Would-
our current pay is.
Well, would that affect interim chief, Voight's patrol time, like on weekends, or how would we handle that? Would we have the part-time officers kind of do some weekday stuff, or?
Our interim chief, Boyd, would remain as interim chief, so I guess it would be up to him for scheduling.
I would like to, seeing that we're meeting with Gaylord tomorrow again, to discuss what's gonna happen further, with possible joining or even the interim stuff. I'd like to see us contract with the county for those 10 to 15 hours each week. I know it's not a lot, but if we could maybe possibly get it to where it's requesting maybe Friday, Saturday nights, or maybe shifting to where we get more coverage either with Jordan instead of during the day, maybe a couple days during the week, maybe on a Friday night, Saturday night, when we know that we'd rather have somebody on the streets here. But I think that would be a way that we could at least get through the next couple of weeks, knowing that we'd have at least, 10, 15 more hours a week at least here in a relatively cheap, well, not cheap, but I mean, looking at the big picture, it's only gonna cost us $450 a week at max, right?
If we were to hire all 15 times 45 would be a little more, but if they had 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's gonna take some time, if we went the other way, it's gonna take some time to get applications and people, I mean, so it's gonna take probably a couple weeks, even if we searched out a part-time.
My only thinking is, I think we need to do I mean, we can keep hoping that we're going to have an agreement with Gaylord. But if they say no, now we're another week or 2 weeks down the road back with the same discussion. And I don't see how having Sibley County give us some temporary interim help now is going to hurt our possibilities of working with Gaylord. I would think they would understand, because I don't foresee meeting and having anything done in the next 2 weeks. I just don't. Not the way the programs went so far. So we can just sit and wait 2 more weeks, and we might still be right here discussing the same thing.
and I'm not sure what it would hurt to go with it. I mean, how long are we gonna keep telling Jordan, you're a one-man show?
And I mean, this is pretty much immediate, right? Sibley County could start pretty much right away
I don't
with
know
their
that.
coverage. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that it's gonna be sooner than later. More immediate than if we tried to hire part-timers or something like that.
I would think it would be sooner than that.
It
Yeah,
makes sense to go
absolutely.
with the county right away.
So were you thinking, Michelle, of going with the county at the, they just come in 3 hours a night at the $45 an hour, or part-time officers at whatever wage we approved after this, using our squad car?
Well, I think the 10 to 15 hours a week right now, just to get,
Yeah.
and that's ASAP, let's get somebody here now. As soon as we can, and I think at the end of the day, that's gonna be the quickest that we can get somebody on. I'm not opposed to hiring part-time police officers either, I just don't know what our, what our department's gonna look like in the long term. So do we wanna commit to hiring part-time? I don't know what that contract would look like if we hire somebody and then after we fill our positions or however it all works out, that, they just don't work anymore, or, I don't know.
We'd have to let them know that up front.
Right, I mean, within a contract or something, I guess. We've already posted for a chief and for officers. Have we gotten any bites on that at all yet, or?
Pretty early though.
Yeah.
But that's only
Just
been a
It's
few.
been a few days, really.
Because we can keep waiting and waiting, but that's not,
We need to do something now.
I agree, I think, I really believe we have to do something now.
One comment on Jordan's behalf, and to just recall from past council discussions, some of you weren't on the council, having a part-time group of officers to call on is theoretical only. And one reason we went away from part-timers is we were experiencing a problem where none of them wanted to work on some of the shifts that we needed them for. If they are part-timers, yes, they have a certain commitment to us, but it's not a real specific commitment. It's, give me a call, and if I feel like it and it fits into my schedule, put me down for next Saturday night. Of course, it depends on the situation too. If we were lucky enough to get a part-timer who, let's say was part-time also somewhere else, they may be looking to fill in as many hours as possible. On the other hand, if the part-timer is a full-time officer somewhere else, this is just, an extra side job, and they may be more or less committed to it. So, I think in that respect, it's an awful lot easier on Jordan, not to have to put him into that situation of, reaching out to part-timers and trying to put a schedule together, and it's like herding chickens or cats sometimes. Yeah. As opposed to just contracting with the county. Then we're contracting with an organized group that's already in existence, and if they say they'll have an officer here 10 hours a week, they will.
If I remember correctly, along with that, the part-time officers were less apt to get all the paperwork done, because they didn't have much hanging over their head.
Good point. Yes, there'd be a problem with continuity if a part-timer, let's say, made an arrest on a Saturday night and required follow-through, as they quite often do, talking to other witnesses and so on. Well, if they weren't on duty for another 2 weeks, either it didn't get done, or our full-time officer or officers would have to pick up where they left off. And that's not a very efficient way to operate. So that was a good point.
Well, I do have to ask a few questions about the two agreements actually that this council has approved with Gaylord. I think the ball is in their court as far as, they've handed us a contract, we approved it, and then now here's 3 points of issue that they have. We're meeting tomorrow night and hopefully can satisfy them on those 3 points and we can move forward. I do like your idea though about regardless of what happens tomorrow, getting the county going on it. And if Gaylord says yes tomorrow, we can continue with the county doing their part and just contract less from Gaylord. Or we can say to the county, you know, it's gonna work out now for the interim coverage from Gaylord, so we don't need your deputies anymore for the next 3 months. I'm thinking of this 3 months, not anything
Right.
longer. And I would hope that it isn't even brought up tomorrow night that there may be a longer agreement. You gotta show me how it's gonna work out for 3 months first before we can even waste time on talking about anything further.
I
So,
think, yeah, to add to that, Mayor, is, you know, I think Gaylord was very concerned about their wearing out of their own officers,
Mhm.
and that's why the agreement was so short, or I think hesitation on their part now. And I think with adding the county, that's gonna hopefully, between the two organizations, maybe we can find enough help for Jordan until we figure out a long-term solution.
yeah, or until we have our applications out, you know, our,
Right, our
add-
long-term solution,
Yep.
whatever that may be.
yeah, whatever it may be. So,
So I guess, I'd like to make a motion to, authorize, I don't see the motion on here, but I'm gonna make the motion to authorize, the county, to help, at $45 an hour for 10 to 15 hours per week.
I'll second.
okay, motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Cowell to authorize Administrator Donabauer to contact the county and enter into agreement with them to provide 10, 15 hours of coverage at $45 an hour, starting as soon as possible. Any more comments? Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Just to wrap this up a little bit, I'm going into tomorrow night's meeting with confidence that we can work things out. I mean, you know, if we're going into it with no confidence to work things out, we might as well not even have the meeting. I think we need to all enter into the meeting as responsible adults that want to help each other out, and I'm hoping that the Gaylord folks feel the same way. So hopefully we can get that worked out, something worked out with them also.
One comment, preparation for that meeting, I guess, logic says that if there were a combination of the departments someday, we're gonna need more bodies. And so, even if Arlington were to conduct a hiring process, and even if that led to hiring some additional people, we would need to staff additional people in a combined department. So I'm not sure why Gaylord would be concerned about our going through this hiring process.
Especially being they suggested it during the workshop that we were at.
Well, they did.
Yes, I
Well,
think.
the last
that-
meeting,
we were-
they told us the last meeting, and that's where I was lost, because when the chief was here and the city administrator and Jim Landis, it was never mentioned that they could not staff a joint or even an interim of help. They never said, well, we can't do this, we don't have the manpower, but yet when we got to Gaylord, we don't have the manpower.
Yeah, they
You need to
suggested
hire
we hire a
somebody.
patrolman. They suggested it that night.
So we said,
Didn't
okay.
say anything about a
Then it
chief.
came up as
They
an
did
issue.
not mention about a chief, but
But I think it's in our best interest to post for that chief
I
position.
think so too.
Because
Yeah.
we just don't know what's gonna happen, and we need to be responsible for our own community first and
Right.
foremost,
That's
so.
right. Agreed.
Do we need to deny, hiring, or act on these, 15A or B?
Because I have, City Attorney Arneson, if I have motions already on the agenda, does anything need to happen, or?
Yeah,
do we wanna pursue looking for part-time officers?
I think just to check it off on the agenda, suppose somebody could make a motion.
To deny.
Or it could die for lack of a motion. I guess
Yeah, that's true.
parliamentary procedure disposes of it that way too.
All right, let's do that. It's less writing that way. I will call for a motion on 15A, authorize or deny hiring of part-time police officers for the interim.
I'll make a motion to deny hiring of part-time police officer for the interim.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Batchor moved to deny hiring part-time police officers in the interim. And Councilmember Hattlestead second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no.
No.
Passes on a 4-1. All right, item B, 15B, increase hourly rate for police officers. Any action on that? I don't know if that's
That'd be irrelevant
it's
since.
irrelevant since the first one was
Yeah.
denied, so that one we will just
I think we should do it anyhow.
ignore.
Sure.
Just for the fun of it.
I need another vote, no vote.
To reach your
Hat
quota.
trick.
Just because you keep ignoring your water park thing, you
Yeah.
have to get testy about it. All right. Miscellaneous business, council committee updates. Are there any? None? All right.
Well, we did have a fire meeting.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And, heard most of it tonight. We talked about the fire truck, the brush rig, buying the 2018 Chevrolet from Brow, at the state bid price. Chief Zaski talked about, working with the hospital on evacuation routes should issue come up. I mentioned Good Sam or Golden Hearts, and apparently he said they don't work with them, they must have their own evacuation program, or he hoped they would. I think once the new brush rig is in and up and running, they're gonna sell the 97 Chevy 3/4 ton that they have. I'm not sure how they're gonna do that yet, but
I mean, the one that we looked at, that?
yeah, the one with 11,000 miles on it.
88? It's 1988.
1988?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost 30 years old.
awesome condition.
Like new.
Really?
11,000.
Classify that as like
11,000 miles?
11,000 miles, beautiful truck.
Yeah,
It is.
so in 30 years, the 2018 will have.
Yeah.
It was a pretty productive meeting. It sounded like the officers are up to their quota on calls, or the firefighters are up to their quota on calls, and everybody seemed to be happy. They were especially happy with the wage increase and so forth and so on. That was, the council was so good to put forward to them. And Chief Zaski said that whenever he goes to a meeting, he gets the question, how did you guys ever get the council to approve that? So I said, well, we could always go the other way too. So they seem to be as happy as they could be.
Good. Thank you.
Did I miss anything, Adam?
Just they went through training for the year. They're finalizing their schedule. And also they're conducting walkthroughs at businesses like Scott Equipment.
Okay.
I think they do a school one monthly, and then they're required every 3 months or something to do it. But they do try to get in there, at least a chief, once a month.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Anything else?
We had a EDA meeting on the 13th, and we had Tim and Angelica Rose take their oaths that day.
Tim
Kleckel.
Kleckel.
Yep, he had been on there. We discussed the business visits for the medical school, marketing of the TSC building, talked a little bit about the industrial park status, and we also talked about, the program that we use to view our documents on now, and, went through some goals. Kinda like a goal.
Is there any news on the TSC building, anything going on?
The TSC building, there's nothing happening. We talked about, advertising, marketing it better, so.
The EDA will do a walkthrough though, right before their next meeting, just so
Okay.
that they have an idea. And then also spring into Arlington, the building will be open, so it'll be open for our public to kind of get an idea what the building looks like and maybe get some ideas churning.
Is it marketed at all online or on?
I don't know if it currently is, but
Is
I
it-
know Holly Kraft, our EDA, she is working on putting together a property listing, not only a map, but then when you click on the map, or, I can't remember if you click on the map, or there are links that each link that you open up will give you information that you need on all the properties that are available.
Okay, and we are selling it on our own, not using a
Right,
realtor?
it's not listed so far.
And then Holly Kraft was also talking about having an open house for commercial real estate agents so that they could come and take a look at it, bring it back to their office, kind of maybe have some people that they may have ideas that could utilize it.
Okay, anything else? If not, let's move into open discussion. Are there any items that anyone wants to bring up? Officer Voigt, anything for us? Okay.
What was the next step on the 2015 street project issue? Where do we go with that?
Sure, so council had asked that I draft a more comprehensive policy, and in my research, and granted, I was out on vacation, so, and with putting together the agenda, it didn't leave a whole lot of time, but in the research I have conducted, there are a few cities that assess in the same manner that this city council is, but they too have not updated their policies. So I don't have any model policies to, model ours after, so we'll have to take a look at ours more thoroughly, and I think
When
there's,
was the last time our policy was, redone? Or when was it put in place?
I think it was, the last update was prior to the 2012 project.
Just before, that's what I thought. So they just had worked on the policy just before the 2014.
And when I asked city engineer Femright if he was, if he could forward policies of other communities that assess in the same manner, and he said in reviewing theirs as well, he came up the same. It's just their policies, and what few policies I've looked at are almost the mirror image of ours, so we all must recycle each other's. But it's very generic. I mean, it's based off the state statute 429 and lays out the different options that a city can assess. So that's how ours reads. And I posed a two-part question out on listserv, which is email access that city administrators throughout the state of Minnesota can respond to. We help each other out. And I posed it in, I have, if you assess in a manner similar to ours, and I explain that versus at the time of substantial completion, can I please see a copy of your policy? And have those communities, have you issued a refund for these projects? And I only had 3 people respond, and as I mentioned, their policies are the same as ours, and they all said no, they have not issued refunds. So I didn't have enough information to present for you tonight, and that's why there's nothing on the agenda.
I want to ask the council, do you feel you have enough information to make a decision at next meeting without any additional information? We've heard about this, about the whole thing now for a month and a half.
Yeah, and I think the last time we talked about it, Michelle had asked for more details as far as the cost, and I think we got that. And I think that was really all. I mean, the policy, I suppose we can adjust at any time. That doesn't need to be done before we make a decision. So I'm not sure what else would be.
Yeah, that's
would
what I
be
was
left.
thinking too. I think we should be in a position to deal with this, with the current issue, and then look at our policy as a separate, if we want to revise the policy.
Well, our policy gives us enough freedom to make any choice we want to make.
Yeah,
just doesn't talk about refunds at all. It doesn't even
Yeah,
address.
doesn't
it.
address it, so.
And there was another question too from Councilmember Batcher, and that was in regard to that 2012 project. Because the scope of the project had changed, the assessments prior to being certified went down, and then your question was, did some go up? And the answer is yes, there were some properties that did go up as a result of a change of scope. But again, the assessment roll had not been certified at the county yet because the project had been completed prior to assessments being finalized at the county at the end of the year.
Personally, I'd like to see it on the agenda next time, and let's get it done with.
I'm ready.
If anyone feels they're lacking a lot of information on it, then say so now, but I think we should get that. I don't know, it's just my 2 cents worth, but. Anyone opposed to that?
It's a hard decision, but it's not gonna get any easier
No.
month from now.
Oh,
No.
It's not
I'll
gonna
just
get any
snowball.
easier.
The longer we wait.
We're just gonna have,
Okay, seems to be consensus, let's put it on the next meeting's agenda for a decision. Any more discussion? If not, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Highland moved to adjourn, second by Councilmember Batcher. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
no.
Opposed, no. Motion
No.
carried.
No.
I gotta get
8:07.
one no in.